All right, hello everyone. Happy Wednesday. Welcome back. We've been taking a break for the holiday weekend. So we are back today with our healthy homes and home performance talk. And today we are going to talk about windows. So just a few tips about window selection if you are looking to replace your windows. So hopefully you can hear me. I'm going to walk away. We're working on the house today. So we've already talked about insulation and air sealing. So really, if you want to make your house more comfortable, the best way to do that is make sure your walls have insulation so that your walls have more surface area and you can get a higher R value in your walls versus your windows. So R value again is resistance to heat flow. So you want a higher R value. So for a code house today, the requirement is a minimum of R21. So if you have an existing house, depending on how old it is, your walls may or may not be insulated depending on if there's been a retrofit or not. And your house might have, if it's old enough, it might have 2x4 walls with or without insulation. So a 2x4 wall might have R11 or R13 in the cavities. Or it might not have anything. So, or if you need to retrofit your wall and you want to blow in insulation, then it could be probably up to R13. So while that is not as high as like a new wall construction, it's better than nothing. And then you can see how it will compare to windows in a minute. So a new window, really old windows are probably just made out of one pane of glass, so known as single pane windows. And so newer windows, most homes today are built with double pane windows, and that's been done for a while. But there's different values that are associated with windows that make some double pane windows better than the other. And then at the other end of the spectrum are triple pane windows. So those are not as commonly installed. Typically they are being put in really high performing houses such as passive houses. They're a lot more expensive, and there's a lot of different factors of that. There is a new technology called a thin triple pane that is coming into the market that I think over time will be a little bit more cost-effective option for a retrofit. But for now, there's not a lot of options out there. I think there's just one US company making them. Otherwise, they're European windows. So what to look for when you are looking for a window. So a typical, I think for code right now, the windows are measured in U value, not R value. So to figure out the R value of a window, you have to take the inverse of the U value, so the reciprocal. So if you have a U value of 0.25, so U values are generally going to be a fraction or a decimal number. So if you have a U value of 0.25, the inverse of that would be R4. So think about a wall of R13 or R19 or R21 with your wall insulation. Compare that to a window value, R value of R4, and that's for actually a pretty good new construction window. That's typically what I recommend. All new homes are getting built have at least a U value of 0.25 or better. So better would be lower. If you can get down to 0.2, you can possibly do that with a double pane window. So that would be better than a 0.25. And then I think the code right now is I think it's 0.30 possibly. It depends where you are too, but in Oregon. So again, R4 window, and the amount of glazing in your home kind of matters as well with how much heat flow you're going to have. So if you have a lot of windows in your home, you are going to have less wall area that's insulated, and so more windows that have a lower R value. So if you are considering replacing your windows, it's generally a pretty expensive project to take on, but you definitely don't want to skimp on your quality of your window. And so a U value is one of the main measures of that. So R value means resistance to heat flow, and then U value is the inverse, the opposite again. So that's how much the window lets go through, how much heat the window lets go through. So, and that's a really big factor in consideration as far as the heating time of the year. So winter time. So you want to look for a window with a lower U value, somewhere around 0.25 or lower for, winter time. So you're not losing all of your heat out of your house that you're paying you're paying to heat the air in your house, and so you don't want to be losing that heat through your windows. And then there's another number on the window. Normally, let's go back a step. So normally a window has a label on it. So it's called the NFRC label. And so generally the first number on there is the U value, and then the next one is the solar heat gain coefficient. And so that is the amount of heat that can get into the home from the outside. So it's kind of like, a lot of these concepts are a little bit tricky to understand. So I encourage you to feel free to reach out to me if you want more clarifying, if you have some clarifying questions, or just go online and look up what these different terms mean. But so whereas U value, you think about for a winter heat loss in the building, in your home, the solar heat gain coefficient is how much heat gain can come into the house. So generally you don't really want to have heat gain, especially if you are in a cooling dominated climate where you have more days out of the year where you have to cool your house. So you want to reduce the amount of heat that can get in through your window. So again, you want that number to be low. Generally the recommendation, at least for the Pacific Northwest, and again, there's like different climates here, but having a 0.25 or lower number is good, so that you are not going to be letting too much heat into the home. And this is really more important for newer houses or houses that have done remodels that are more airtight, because you might have heard of passive solar and all these different different sort of things around. That's kind of where passive houses came from. You're like, oh, well, I want to let the heat gain in my house in the wintertime to help warm it up. But if you have too much heat gain, then in the summertime, then you're going to be spending a lot more time and money in cooling your house to keep it comfortable. So having a balance of that is really important. So those are the two main values on a window label that you want to look for, are the solar heat gain coefficient and the U value, and those in the Pacific Northwest should be around 0.25 or lower. There are a couple other ones on there. One of them is an air leakage rate. So windows are composed of glass and the frames and, many pieces that are being put together. So there's an air leakage rate on there, and that's generally not like a very, very important factor in picking a window. So I wouldn't worry about that one too much, but that's on there. And you can maybe look at that when you're comparing different windows, window brands and types. And then there is the visible transmittance of a window, of how much light you're seeing through, like what kind of quality that is, like how bright it is. And so generally the more panes of glass, and then also different coatings that are put on there. Typically there's a low E coating on one of the faces of the glass. And so that can reduce the visible transmittance a little bit. Generally, it's not really noticeable. So don't worry about that as much as well. But if you're looking at getting more coatings on a window, so you can have more than one low E coating, you can have other kinds of coatings on the windows, and those can lower the visible light that comes through. So it's just maybe, like they used to make like tinted glass for windows, and they don't really do that anymore just because the visible transmittance isn't very good in those. So yeah, again, I'm not a window expert. These are just kind of the basics. So definitely, if you are looking for windows, look for maybe a local dealer in your area so you know like what brands they carry, and maybe which types are better than others. So I've been talking about the glass a lot. Then you have the frame as well. So there's vinyl, there's fiberglass, there's steel, and then there are composite frames and wood. So, and sometimes there's like wood on the inside and then fiberglass or composite material on the outside. So those all have different price points. Some of benefits of materials that are, for example, fiberglass or composite are that they are more stable, meaning they don't expand and contract as much as a material like vinyl does. So when you are installing your window and you're making sure that you're doing a really good job of install and making sure it's really well sealed around the perimeter, over time, the caulk and the foam that you use to do the air sealing of the frame of the window, that and then the wood can expand and contract small amounts over time, and that can actually break your seal of the caulk and the foam, and so then you can end up with air leaks and potential moisture drive through the wall. So having a more stable frame material like fiberglass or a composite material just helps the frame be more stable. So again, do your research and talk to your local window company and see, or if it's someone that sells multiple different brands of windows, see which one makes the most sense for you. And then one other thing, so there's different styles of windows. There are fixed windows, casement, awning, double hung, single hung, sliders. And so generally, as far as efficiency goes and potential air leakage, the fixed windows are going to be the best performing, and the sliding type windows are going to be the worst, just the way they are made. And casements and awnings are a good option for windows that you want to be able to open for ventilation and egress, because they kind of work like your car door in having a gasket around the perimeter that helps with the compression closing. So when you shut the window, there's this like rubber or I'm not really sure what material that gasket is, but a gasket that can be compressed and make a really good seal for the window. So if you're replacing windows, you might just want to go with the same style as what you had, but also consider, where you need to have an egress window and where you might want to choose a fixed window in your home. So I think that is it for now. Again, feel free to reach out to me here on Facebook or on my website, enerstructa.com, if you have questions about selecting windows for your home retrofit project. And I will see you next week. All right, take care.